And what does it take to integrate generative AI into your enterprise? What are the different pieces that you need? And it's not just software. You need the right content. We talked a little bit about it, so we're going to talk more about the right content. You need the right context. You need the right controls. And you need the ability to connect all these systems together in a composable way. So we're going to talk about the 4 C's that you need to integrate generative AI into your enterprise. And then we go into the fun bit. I know you guys are waiting for this part, right? Where you get to mess around with prompts. That comes up. That's where we go from there. We'll guide you through some of the prompts that we've been working on with our customers, specifically around using style guides and pieces like that. And we have machines that we left at these tables, which you guys can use to access our system and work on it. So we'll do it as a group exercise because this is a large group to be able to do it individually. We'll also have the same things running on screen, so you will be able to follow even if you don't have a laptop. So let's jump straight into it. We saw that this is a picture that Ashu shared yesterday, and I wanted to start with this picture to give us a sense of where we feel generative AI can really help in customer service as well as knowledge-backed customer service. So sources on the left, right, are the different sources of content that are available in the organization. The hub in the middle, and you have all the consumers on the right side. As you bring content into the hub from the sources, we have the ability to create and curate answers and transform the knowledge as it comes in. That's one of the places that we believe generative AI can significantly help in reducing the time and improving efficiency. And then as the knowledge goes back out of the hub, you have the ability, you have the place where you are creating these answers that people can consume. The answers need to be immediately consumable, and they need to be personalized. That's another piece where we match the query that's coming in with the right method of providing the answer, and the right personalization that's needed to deliver that answer. So those are areas where we can help with generative AI. So, where do we think it helps? On the right, on the right side is a McKinsey quote where it says it has the potential to reduce service costs by up to 45%, and this is just generative AI. So in case, and if you're equating it with the road to 75, that has more than just generative AI to it. What we found working with our customers is about close to 80% of the authoring tasks that people perform today, and the key word is the people perform today, can be automated. These include things like creating first drafts, which take a lot of time. Include things like translating content into other languages potentially, or translating content into other styles, or making them suitable for other channels. Personalizing responses for audience groups, and the big one, which is standardizing your knowledge, aligning it with your brand, making sure all the rules are followed. I think I've heard active to passive about 15 times now, in terms of how passive to active voice rather. Right? So all of those are things that we believe Gen AI can be used to automate. How does that work? I want to take an example. This is a customer of ours. They came to us. When they came to us, they didn't really have a knowledge hub or a central knowledge tool. They had a patchwork of tools. They had a patchwork of agent tools. Their ask of us was, help us create that hub. So we got a chance to work from zero, which is not something that we get all the time. What we were able to do was we were able to go in there and first start with their conversations. We looked at their conversations. We used generative AI to extract the most common questions that people were asking. Once we extracted the most common questions people were asking, we did an analysis of that to figure out which are the most important questions. Based on that, we were able to create titles for articles or answers that would answer the questions. Took those pieces of information, organized that content into a taxonomy, went back to all the sources they had, created drafts for those articles, and we got them reviewed by humans to ensure that they are accurate and published them. The result was we built the entire knowledge base 5 times faster than we would have been able to do it if we didn't have generative AI there. The answers that we had were 6 times less incorrect, or 6 times more correct. It resulted in a higher first-call resolution and a higher CSAT. So some of those elements that we talked about right now takes us back to the method. We talked a little bit about this yesterday as well. We start by discovering questions. This is a really key step, and this is probably one of the places where, when we start working with our clients, this is the place where we spend most amount of time, and this is where we have that eventually the aha moment. Okay, now I see where this can go. Understanding what questions give you value, and we're not actually saying that we're not saying all the other pieces are not important, but understanding what's truly important helps you focus your efforts, your time, and everything is time. Managing a 50,000 article knowledge base is time. So focus your time on that 20% that's actually going to get to you the results. That's really what that first step is about. The second step is about finding the answers and from the sources. Now, if you don't do the first step, one of the things that we often see people do is we go through a task of let's clean up the knowledge base. Let's fix everything that's wrong with it. Let's remove the duplicates. I have seen many of those attempts. By the time you start at one end and you clean and get to the other end, you have to start over again. It's a never-ending process. I've never seen it completed. So the way we'd like to look at it is, that is going to be a process that you have to do. But if you understand what's important to you, we can focus on making that important piece shine. And we can use generative AI to automate most of those pieces. So in this picture, the piece that we didn't explain yesterday was the little 2 stars. Those are all the tasks that either generative AI can completely automate, or generative AI, or with the help of an expert in the loop, automate and speed up. So the ones that have only the stars, we believe that those tasks can be completely automated by generative AI. The one with the stars with the human head, those are the tasks where we believe having an expert will give you better returns. So, starting from the top, discovery of questions from your call conversation transcripts. That's something that we can automatically do. Once the questions are discovered, the analysis, it's good to have human eyes on the analysis so we understand what's important for you. The same goes for transformation. As we bring content in, we can transform it, but before you publish it out, it would be good for somebody to take a look at it for accuracy and for compliance and other reasons. And the matching is where we match the question with the best method of delivering content, which we can automatically do. So some of the areas where generative AI can help, and kind of summarizing that, across all the 4 steps, we believe there is a lot of places where generative AI can help speed things up. The second place I want to take you guys back to is trust. We talked quite a bit about this yesterday. We said trusted answers must come from a single central knowledge hub. Right? For us to have trusted answers, for generative AI to really, really help, it needs to be backed up by things that we can trust, things that we know are high quality, and that's where a knowledge hub comes in. So you need to have trusted content, you need to have those controls and governance in place that allow you to ensure that Gen AI is being used in the right way and that the content that's being used for generative AI is indeed trusted. You need to have closed-loop analytics to measure how well the system is functioning. Because if you're not measuring it, you don't know where things are going wrong and you can't improve. And you need the ability to orchestrate all these elements in a very configurable fashion. So that's the place where you need a modern knowledge hub. So now switch gears just a little bit and look at the eGain Knowledge Hub and generative AI and the capabilities that are available within the eGain Knowledge Hub. Most of you are probably familiar with Assist by now because you would have seen it yesterday in the demonstrations. Some of you are already working with us and using Assist. Assist GPT is our generative AI capabilities packaged with out-of-the-box learnings that we've had working with a lot of you. So it comes out of the box with a lot of prepackaged use cases, prompts that are ready to use. But you can also go in there, and we talked a little bit about the fact that prompts matter, and small tweaks to the prompts will make them drastically better for your business. Also, it also comes with the ability to make those small tweaks. So you'll be able to go in there, adapt those prompts to your business. Also has the measurement built into it. Everything that happens in the system is audited. Everything that happens in the system is measured. So you will be compliant with the various pieces that you need to be compliant with, and you will be able to understand where things are working and where things are not. And lastly, and this is interesting, this is the ability to build additional use cases using APIs, or the ability to compose your journeys or your solutions. So, what can it do for you? What are some of the things that it can do for you? Out of the box, if you're an author and you want to draft content based on particular sources, it can draft that content, it can create your first draft for you. If you have content and you're looking for it to generate some metadata, it can do that for you. It can generate content from suggestions, it can improve articles based on either AI insights or feedback, and it can help you organize them into taxonomy. It can also help you summarize your conversations. It can help you with creating consumable answers for your agents from the content based on the channel that they're in. So if you have an article that needs to be sent across a chat channel, you need it phrased differently because the messages are shorter. Whereas it's different when if you're going to try and send it over email, or if an agent's actually reading it out on the phone. So it can help personalize those specific to the channel. It can also help you classify your case information as well. And on the analytics side, it helps you extract insights, it can help you get quick executive summaries, and it helps you create suggestions to improve the article. Just taking a look at some of these. This is the author experience. You will be seeing this today in the hands-on session. You will be looking at the authoring console as you apply the prompts. This is the eGain authoring console. The part on the right side is where the article that you're working on, and getting my right and left confused. The right side is the article that you're working on, and the left side is what is the insights that are the metadata insights and other attributes of the article. So what you're seeing in this picture is the prompts that are available for the author. Click on the AI button, you get to see prompts, and the insights that AI can generate and act upon and improve the article with. Quick look at the agent and the customer experience as well. This is again, well, you'll be seeing one part of it today. Maybe the other part was shown in the demo. We're not going to get into the conversational aspects of it today in the hands-on session. The portal experience, you will see that today. So the ability to get answers from multiple questions, the ability to tell you where the answers came from, and for you to be able to click through into the source and see exactly what parts of the source was used in the answer. And the conversational assistant gives you the ability to converse over large documents or all the information in your knowledge base. Or you could even point it to other sources like your website and use that information to converse over, reason, and get to a response. And on the analyst side, you have the ability to measure all of these. So this is just one of the dashboards that are available. This is specific to instant answers, so you get a sense of what are the searches people are doing, what are the ones that are actually working, what are the ones that are falling below the thresholds, so you know where you need to spend your time optimizing. So, what have we learned over the last couple of years working with customers such as yourself? I think I covered some of these yesterday, but some of these it's worth going into once more. The quality of knowledge. We covered quality of knowledge in two different ways yesterday. The quality of the actual document. Remember, we talked about the tables nested within tables nested within tables. I have seen that at nearly, I'd say 70% of the customers that I've worked with. I've seen it. Because the procedures that are written into tables, if it's difficult for a human to follow, it's going to be difficult for an AI system to follow as well. Prompts. We talked about the importance of prompts. Small tweaks to the prompts make it far more useful for your knowledge and your business. So any tool that you pick absolutely needs to have the ability for you to tweak those prompts, to manage those prompts, to make them work for your business. Controls are another thing. You do need, and we'll talk in detail about controls, because that's one of the places we're going to spend a lot of time on, understanding what are the controls you need to make generative AI work in the enterprise. Controls that allow you to say which part of your knowledge base you can apply generative AI to, what are the rules around it, what are your needs around it, where do you need to be so compliant that there is legal language being used here that do not rephrase this document. Controls to that level, controls that allow you to turn things on and off. Controls that tell you certain audiences are sensitive, don't rephrase it. Now maybe you're lawyers, they are looking for content, you don't want things rephrased for them. But you do need those controls to really build a generative AI system. So we've over time looked at this and said we do need, if you were to take three things away, you do need a modern knowledge hub. You do need a system that allows you to design a generative AI procedure with experts in the loop. So you have to have the ability for generative AI and humans to be able to work together in the system. And you need a system that can measure and manage from day zero. So I'll leave you guys with that pitfalls as we kind of go into the next section, where we'll look at this in more detail. And we're going to now look at what does it take to integrate generative AI into the enterprise. What are the details behind these things? What are the different elements that you need? That I'll worship.
I think with ChatGPT, one of the things that changed is ChatGPT gave us as end consumers insight into how a Gen AI technology can be consumed by end users very easily. So it's a conversational interface that you and I can use for everyday questions we have. You can converse with it and it will give you back responses very quickly. Right? So as we consumed it as end users, obviously it opened up possibilities for using this technology within a product and for the problems that we're solving for our business. So now I'm going to talk about what are the different aspects you need to look at when you're integrating a Gen AI technology within your business, where you as a knowledge manager or as a business user, what are the different aspects you need to look at before you say this will work or not work. And work effectively for the users who are going to consume the solution that you're rolling out. So what are the key ingredients for an enterprise-friendly GenAI solution? So the three building blocks, according to us, is content, obviously, which we've been talking about since yesterday, about the fact that content matters. What you feed into the GenAI solution is one of the key building blocks. Then the controls that you have within the application so that you can tweak what the GenAI solution is going to deliver to your end users. And the context that's provided to you. So I'll share that with an example that will kind of explain why context matters if you have all that. And then a platform that's going to bring all of this together, because you obviously you are an enterprise business, you have a lot of solutions that are already deployed there. So you need a platform that can work with what you have and bring all of this together to deliver a solution that end users can consume easily. So that's essentially what I'll go over, and also talk about how EV Knowledge Hub helps with that. So garbage in, garbage out. I think we've hammered that message since yesterday. If you have garbage, it's going to be garbage that the end users will see, whether it's pure search or whether it's GenAI, it's no different. It's going to be exactly the same if you're working with GenAI. So you need high quality content to get trusted answers back for your end users. So how do I ensure that your content is trusted? Is it accurate? Is it being certified by the right people within the organization? When was it last updated? If it's a few years old, then is it really something that you want to put in front of a GenAI engine? Right? So is it reviewed frequently? Is it reviewed to see if it needs to be expired so that it doesn't land up in a GenAI model that's trying to generate an answer and respond back to the user? Are there duplicates sitting around? So for example, if there are 3 duplicate articles with contradicting content on the same topic, your AI is going to be confused just like an end user. So the trustworthiness of the content that's sitting in your system is important even for AI. That's not good. Obviously the AI can help you with that, but you need good trusted content for the AI to give a trusted answer at the end of it. Right? So and it doesn't matter if is it your curated content that you've created as articles, as answers to questions, or it's documented content that's sitting somewhere in your documents. But you need to have that trust layer on it. Is it something that you want to put into your GenAI solution? But it could be collaborative content, like for example, you have email transcripts, chat transcripts in which there's knowledge sitting. You want to pump that into an AI engine. Do you trust those email transcripts for AI to look at it and then respond based on those emails? So essentially that control on the content and the trustworthiness of that content is important. And then there's prompts, which again, you can't just have prompts that are created but those are not being reviewed by anybody and made them available to the end users. So essentially what you need is a consistent, accurate, up-to-date, explainable content that can be versioned and audited and then delivered to your end users. So one of the things that you need to consider is prompts are your new IP. So essentially prompts have a lot of value within your business because the prompts you write, what they do, what are the guardrails that are available with the prompts is going to make a lot of difference on the solution that's going to be delivered to your end users. So what are prompts? They're nothing but natural language instructions to the AI saying, take this content, generate this response, put these guardrails. But what you've written there needs to have the same kind of control that you want to have on your content. Like, is it, have you validated? Have you tested? Is it being reviewed by the right set of people within the organization? Is it approved? And is it version and audited? Because what's in the prompt is going to influence what is being generated as part of the response. So you need to be able to audit it, to be able to manage the change that's happening, and you need to expire if that prompt doesn't make any sense after a point in time. So the same kind of controls you need let's say on a piece of content essentially. So it's a piece of content with additional value because it also captures your business process as part of the prompt instruction. The next important ingredient is context. So I'll quickly go over a use case that explains why context is important when you're dealing with Gen A. Right? So consider a simple question. What is the current interest rate for the mortgage? It's a very generic question, and let's say you have an article or a piece of content that's answering that question. If you ask that question, the typical answer would be our rates of range from this to this percent, especially based on whatever the article is saying. Right? So now let's say you give the prompt some additional context. Let's say that the client is looking for 15 years of fixed interest rate. They have an excellent credit score. They've been a customer of the bank since a long time, and they've delivered millions of dollars as assets in their account. So would it behave any different once you provide that context? So in this case, you can basically provide that context and personalize your response. Again, with the right set of content that's backing that response. It's not like it's going to come up with that response. There's an article that's capturing your policy for interest rates, and you're giving that in prompt saying, this is my policy for my interest rate, and this is the context of the customer. So the response is more personalized and it's more accurate and more consumable and trustworthy because it's based on the content that's sitting within your business. So what are the different types of context that you want to consider adding to your prompt to make those responses more consumable for your end users? So the first type of context would be business context. For example, there is a system-wide outage which is affecting the tax filing in a certain area. So given that context, the response your AI will generate will be different. So that's one example of business context. The next could be agent context. So for example, you don't want agents to authorize payments. They can create a payment plan, but they cannot authorize or accept payments. If that's the policy that you want, you could feed that into the prompt. So that way, if someone is creating a prompt with that context, so your AI is not going to, it's not going to enable use case where the agent is accepting payments. So those are the guardrails you can put using agent context. The next is customer context. So like we saw, right? So if the customer has a good history with the bank, then you can basically provide that information into the prompt and it will give you a more personalized, trusted answer. In this example, for example, if the customer owes $10K in tax and is delinquent, then you can feed that into the prompt and it will give you a more contextualized response as part of the answer that's created. The other key ingredient that you put into your prompt is the context of the journey. So for example, there's a customer that's navigating a website and they're browsing for FAQs, they're looking for payment plan, they're trying to do some electronic payments and they couldn't figure out. And let's say that is the conversation that your agent is handling. So giving that journey context into the prompt, it will do a better job of understanding the customer journey, the content you have, and then delivering a very personalized answer. And you can prompt your AI to do that, saying, look at this journey, look at this customer context, look at this process that I have, and then generate a response that you want me to give to this customer as part of this interaction. So it can be more personalized and contextualized with these type of contexts being part of the prompt. The next type of context you can possibly give to the prompt is can be the inferred context. For example, let's say the customer has been with the business for a long time. You've had some chat and email interactions or phone conversations with transcripts, for example. So you could provide that as a context, as a conversational context to the prompt, and it will generate a response based off that background and the knowledge sitting in your system. So the context is important because without that, it will just give you one generic answer based on the content that's in your system. The next is interrogative content. So for example, you are asking for a question. The question that's being asked is very generic. So let's say, how do I get my check? So you could possibly clarify that by asking, are you talking about your paycheck? Are you talking about your 401k? Are you talking about your stock sale, for example? So the clarification question is also required at times, even with the AI, because sometimes AI cannot figure out what exactly you are asking. So that follow in the form of a conversational AI is also required at times. If you cannot provide the response in a single response back, you need to ask that clarifying question, clarify what is it about, and then go about the conversation. So which is some parts of it which we saw yesterday with the conversational AI bot that we demoed. So that's about the context. The different type of context makes the answers more trusted, more personalized, and useful for the end users while they're consuming it. The next thing I'll talk about is controls. Why are they required? So, as a business, you need controls on the AI so that you can roll it out more securely within your enterprise. So, is the data secure? Is the data that's going into these AI solutions, is that secure? Is the generated answer free of biases and discrimination, which is one of the topics that always comes up? Is the solution compliant with the regulatory compliances that you already adhere to as a business? Is there traceability in audits for the solution that you brought out? And then the application owners are able to turn the GenAI solution on and off based on whether maybe there's a business decision not to use AI, or there are portions in your business where you don't want to use the AI, or there are specific use cases where you want to enable the AI. Do you have that granular level of control on the AI solution that you're rolling out? So that's an important aspect to consider. So, and dive deeper into data when it comes to AI, what are the different aspects of data and how you need to deal with data when it comes to AI. So the data elements of an AI is a prompt, the model that you're using, and then the generated response that it's coming out with, and how basically you can have controls on that data, right? So let's talk about prompts. Like we said, prompts is your instruction to AI. It can have your business-specific information, process information as direction to the AI to see how it needs to come with an answer. So, but prompts could contain confidential information, personal information, health information. So, by default, most of the models will store the prompts and also the generated content. So you need to have a platform that's not doing that, so that public information or the personal information is not stored in these platforms essentially. So one of the recommendations we have is make sure there are masking rules on your content before it gets into an AI system, so that way you don't have any PIR or PHI information that's fed into the prompts. Again, if you're using again, we all have contractual agreements with the model providers where they don't store the prompts in the response. The response is generated, so that's not a problem. But that's something to consider. Let's say if you're evaluating your own model, then you cannot store the information that's getting into the prompts just to be compliant and not storing any confidential information as a result of that. The next is the model itself, right? So the model itself that you're using, so is it something that's pre-trained, or are they training based on the data that you're feeding, or the prompts, or the content that you're feeding into it? So most of the foundational models have the ability to guarantee that they don't train their models based on the data that you are passing into it, and the models that we use to comply to that requirement. But again, that's something to look at, because that's one of the concerns whenever you say AI, is it learning off my proprietary content that I have or business information that I have? So that's another thing to consider. And the solution itself today has those guardrails where it will ensure that it's not learning based off the prompt that you are sending on to the AI, the data that you are sending on, or even your business process content that you're sending, so that it generates a trusted response. So that's a key control when it comes to GenAI. And the next, again, just like the prompt, the response could also have confidential or personal or PHI information if you're passing out a prompt. So ensuring that your prompt does not have PII is the key thing. So then you don't have to worry about what is if the generated response is essentially having PII and is really stored. Again, you have contractual agreements with the model vendors where we don't store any information, so that's not a problem with e-gaming. So the next kind of control you should worry about is what about my GDPR compliance or my CCPA compliance? So what are my standard compliance procedures when it comes to rolling out the AI solution? So if you're ensuring that there is no personal, confidential, or PHI information that's getting into the prompts, into the responses, then whatever you have today in terms of procedures for your GDPR or CCPA compliance, you can just stick to those. You don't need to do anything special. But the key thing is to make sure that there is no information that's getting into the AI platforms that would then that you then need to go and look for and mask off or maybe even get removed, right? So that wouldn't be a concern if you're not passing that information at all. The next one is model bias. So many of the popular models are trained against biases, and again, that is evolving. You all know how frequently the models change. We keep getting advanced models with a lot of guardrails around biases. And we keep updating our models to the latest version just because of their speed, the cost, and the efficiency, and overall the context windows that they provide. So at this point, the model bias is not a concern, and you can always use the prompt to constrain it such that it's generating a response that's very specific to your business needs, and it's not proliferating to topics that you don't want to answer using AI essentially. So those guardrails are available once you kind of have a prompt that is sticking to those guardrails. Just a prompt is sufficient, and the model, the foundational models will take care of the bias concern by themselves. So one of the key things key differences between the way we operated before AI and after is, and that comes up when we're working with customers, where if you're using a traditional search versus a Gen AI. So earlier, if you have a search term, the response that you get as part of the search is for the most part going to be consistent if you have the same type of articles, topics sitting in your system. But with Gen AI, that's no longer the case, because even for the same type of input, with the same type of context, with the same type of article content sitting in your system, you could still get a different response from the AI, because it is behaving like humans. So we don't always respond back with the same kind of words or wordings. It will mean the same thing, but it won't be exactly the same when it's being asked the same question a few times. So hence the traceability of what was sent in, what was responded back, and what is the snapshot of your prompt that generated that response is very useful for you as a business, just purely to be compliant and to have the end-to-end traceability of your content, your prompt, your generated response that resulted in what was being shown to that user, whether it's an agent or a customer, or it doesn't matter. So that traceability, a platform having that traceability is very important to make sure you're safely using the AI solution. And like Arvind said, the ability to analyze the effectiveness of your AI, because obviously there's a lot of AI initiatives that businesses are making, but what is the difference they are making to your business, right? So what are people asking? Are appropriate responses being generated? Are they being used? Is there any feedback being provided on those generated responses? The ability to track that is very important. Then you can go and measure the impact that has on your business subsequently. So for example, what are the questions that are being asked? What is the first time acceptance rate? So let's say there's a prompt that you've written, which you've rolled out, and most of the time it's the authors or agents who are using it are regenerating the response. So that means it is not working. Maybe the prompt engineers need to go and re-author that prompt so that it's more effective for the end user. So that kind of analytics needs to be available for you to make those decisions. If you're just writing prompts and rolling out, it won't be effective for the end users. Again, on the same lines, which prompts are being used, which prompts are being regenerated or generated, which prompts are being used to add responses to your email chat, or just say, let's say you're just using standalone, which prompts are being given feedback on. So which prompts are being used frequently. I think that would be another one. So as we rolled out our best practice libraries, so we observed that in terms of generating article metadata, like the title and the keywords, so those kind of prompts were the prompts that were the most popular. So we felt those were the obvious ones, but those are the ones that basically help the authors to do it quickly, which otherwise would have taken at least a few minutes for someone to compile that keyword, which the AI does it consistently pretty much all the time. So those are the popular prompts that you've seen, and now I think the ability to style an article based on your own style guide, so that's another one that we see is popular among authors. And for agents, I think if you're using chat, email, on some of the interaction channels, the ability to summarize. So for example, the summarization task itself can take a few minutes if not, and that's one of the important parts of a wrap-up action for an agent. So even the ability to summarize, let's say, phone transcript, if you have to do it as a human, it's a huge effort versus the AI can do it very quickly, and then it can be captured in your CRM for further tracking and any other record. Okay. So what are the other controls that you need beyond the ability to control the prompts and the rollout of those and the auditing? At a very high level, the ability to turn off Gen AI if that's something that you want to do, the high level switch of turning off, and can you just fall back to the default mode of search, let's say if that's the service that you're turning off. The ability to turn it off for specific groups of photos, because there could be, as we are working with customers, the ability to turn it on for a group that's piloting AI and turn it off for the rest of the users. So that type of control you need, so that you as a business can roll AI gradually, so that you don't want to just turn it on for everybody. So that type of control is required. Disallowing certain portions of your knowledge base not to be part of the Gen AI at all. So there could be compliance documents that you'd rather use them verbatim as part of the response. You don't want the AI to just go and reword some of that content. So the ability to turn that off completely, saying this article or this content cannot be used in a generative response whatsoever. So that is a control that we see being used often. Then the ability to adjust the confidence threshold and the temperature. So as we are working with customers, so we do see that the expectations on the response that the AI is generating is very different. So at times you're okay with a not confident answer based on the business where you're using it, or where it absolutely needs to be the highest confident answer for it to show up on the UI. So the ability to control that based on your business needs is absolutely required, and we've seen that being used pretty much everywhere where there's AI, whether it's instant answers or prompts. And then the ability to review, approve, and expire prompts, and version and audit prompts, which we talked about. Okay, so now we talked about content, context, and controls. For all of these to work together, you need a platform that brings all of this together and also enables you to bring the aspects that are available within different applications. For example, you have a CRM system where you have customer information, and where you have, let's say, all the account information and whether the customer is a premium customer or the customer has just joined the business. So the ability to pull that context into the prompts is also important. So hence you need a platform that will bring everything together, because if it's just a point solution, AI solution, it will obviously come up with a response, whether you want to use it or not. is always going to be questionable because it won't have all the context about the customer, it won't have your guardrails as a business. So hence the composable platform. So what are the different aspects of this composable platform? So you need the content sources, which basically are your existing content sources, whether it is your knowledge base or it's your SharePoint or any other content source that you trust, essentially, right? So you can set the rules around the content that can get into an AI engine. That, let's say, given a question, what is my mortgage rate? What is that content you are allowing the AI to search? So the content sources and the level of trust you have for those content sources. So that's the first. And then the next is personalizing that response based on the context that you have about the customer and to make that content richer for whoever is asking the question. So that is the next composability you would want. The next is the technology. So again, there are foundational models. For the most part, we've seen those work for all the use cases that we've had. But again, if you need more flexibility on the type of model that you want to use for, let's say, summarizing a conversation versus generating a response. So if you want to use different models, the ability to control which one to use when, for which prompt, for example. So that level of control is important if, as a business, you want to roll out different type of use cases. And then if you want to bring your own model completely, so that could be an option as well based on the industry you're in. And the last thing, and I think that's the most important thing, and working with customers, the user experience that you deliver at the end of it. Because whoever is consuming that response, it needs to be all brought together. If it's just looking at some content, generating a response that you have doubts of whether I should use this or not, so it's not going to be adopted. So the ability to have a user interface that uses generative AI, process guidance where it makes sense, or using conversational AI where it makes sense, or just fall back to a regular search if none of that's going to work. Right? It needs to be an integrated solution that's accounting for all of this and then delivering the response to the end customer. So that way, the end customer doesn't have to guess if am I supposed to consume this or not, right? So that ability to bring all these things together and deliver it with a user experience that's consumable for the end user is really key. And again, like I said, bringing your own model. For the most part, the foundational models that we work with work well without any fine-tuning. All you need really is the prompt on top of it, which kind of puts the guardrails, puts your specific business processes, accounts for it, so that in case, for example, I think one of the clients we were working with, so while they want to use generative AI to bring content from different articles and draft a response, they want the AI to stick to the language that's in the article and not kind of reword a lot of that content. So those are guardrails you can put in the prompts using the foundational models. You don't really need a fine-tuned pre-trained model. But again, if you are in an industry where that's required, or for compliance reasons you don't want to use one of those existing models out there, we have the ability to connect into our platform for your content, for content retrieval, for clearing the metadata in terms of the content, and we can use the model that you have to do the generation. So that's a model. That's something to look out for, because that could be required based on the industry vertical. Okay, again, to emphasize what we've been saying since yesterday. So again, a point solution with Gen AI enabled is not going to work. With all these aspects and the platform that will bring everything together, you need a knowledge hub that is going to take your different content sources, layer the metadata on it, and then it will use the generative technologies to come up with a trusted answer. If you just let's say throwing a set of emails that were written by agents at a Gen AI prompt saying, can you take these transcripts and generate a response to this email that I'm getting from a customer, it is not going to do a good job at it. Because you need that consolidation as part of a knowledge hub which would then enable you to source that content, make sure you trust it before you're making it available for an AI engine to go and respond based off that, right? So that's essentially what the value knowledge hub would bring, and that is required whether you're consuming knowledge as your end users or whether AI is consuming it. It's essentially the same in both cases. Okay, with that,
So, thank you, Varsha. Thank you, Varsha. So, we've thrown a lot of information at you over the last hour. We are going to set up for the hands-on session, but as we set up, these guys are going to bring laptops, and I said to you guys, set up for the session, but as we set up, we're also open to taking some Q&A. So we'll have the guys join me up here on stage, and if you have any questions on what you've heard so far, we'll be happy to take them.
Thanks, Arvind and Varsha. So my question is, assuming a greenfield scenario where you don't have a knowledge hub established, where do you go find what are the most common questions or the most critical questions an organization is concerned about? Like, where would you source that very first step?
So the question was, where do you find the questions? Where do you go in an organization to find the most common questions? Thank you for that. What we find, especially, and this I'm going to kind of restrict it to a contact center scenario because the other scenarios will have different sources. For a contact center scenario, your customer conversations are your source of questions. Most of you guys who are on the contact center, you're already recording every single one of your conversations. They may be for quality purposes or they may be for compliance purposes. But that's the store. That's the place where you find most of the questions. And that's the store to do the analysis on as you get into knowledge. Anybody else? Questions? Anything on controls? I'm surprised because most of the questions I get normally are on how do I do something specific with the controls or what kind of controls I have. Great. If that, we can always switch over to the hands-on session. So what we'll do is we'll start with, as these guys are setting up, we'll start with giving you guys a view into prompts. We'll go over how to write effective prompts. You might think when you look at prompts that, if this is natural language, it's English, if I say something, the system should do it. What we found is not as much. If you say something in very specific ways, you can get the system to do very specific things. So that's the piece we're going to cover next. We're going to cover, the art of writing prompts, which Prashant is very familiar with. So thank you, Prashant.
Hi guys, can you hear me? So at this point in time, I assume that everybody might have tried ChatGPT already. But let me ask this: how many of you have tried ChatGPT but didn't get the desired output as you expected? Yeah. And how many of you still think GPT is done? Oh, I didn't see the same answer at the beginning. Okay. So before I get into the best practices, I'll just give you the rule of thumb that I follow while I write the prompts. I assume the model to be a kid which has a reasoning capacity or capabilities. So how do you instruct a kid to perform certain tasks? So first thing, you should be concise and clear. So you should not give an instruction or a statement in such a way that it would confuse the kid. So that's the major rule of thumb. The second, I don't cram up with a lot of instructions and tasks at one go. I would simplify the tasks as much as possible. I would say, for example, get milk from a grocery store, that's it. I'll not give multiple tasks, I'll go to US or some other place, get me a thermometer and multiple steps. I would break the tasks into simple tasks like I would do for a kid and then instruct to do stuff. So those are some major rule of thumb that I follow while I'm doing the prompt instructions. So this next set of slides I'll go through some of the best practices, but what exactly is the best practice? What do you get if you do this? So even if you don't follow all of this, you give it something, it will give you something out. But how do you get it to give the way that you expect it and consistently as well? So it should be consistent every time you try to do the same thing again and again, not giving different output again and again. So this is what I mean you will achieve in terms of accuracy if you follow these best practices. Having said that, these are some basic practices. There are advanced practices as well, which I will touch through on some of those concepts, but will not go deep into it. But if you guys are facing any trouble on the hands-on session, I can help you with those practices as well. So to start with, I would say, even though I said as a rule of thumb, as a general, make it simple and all of that, I would still say there is certain structure, and if you follow that structure well, it sometimes behaves consistently. Most of the time it behaves consistently, and all of these practices I'll always say it's most of the times, I'll not say 100% because this is predominantly a probabilistic system. You cannot predict anything with 100% a guarantee. So this is, you structure the prompt in such a way, first you will have to define a role. So this is not a must. For example, you define a role that you are the best support agent in the world, and then how do you answer certain things. So this again will not always work. For example, in one of the scenarios I gave in one of the demo, you're the best author in the world. It started writing like Shakespeare. So it started writing poems and all of that stuff. So again, it's good to have this, but not for all scenarios. So use specific examples. So whenever you don't get it to answer well, again, like you instruct a kid, you give example on how to get milk. So you have to go there and then get it, or give a certain story to it on how it should behave, and it will try to follow that example. So that is must. So you first try with the normal prompts, and then if something doesn't work, then add these specific examples to it so that it follows that well. Set constraints. So when I say limit the scope of model's output, ideally you have to have certain way of limiting your instructions. For example, you cannot just go and say summarize my chat transcript. It will still give you an output, but add terms like summarize in a concise way, like in 7 lines or in a paragraph or something. So then your output would be better. If you give it generic, it will give you something, but it might not be precise, and it can vary every time you give the same prompt to it. So these are, it's the same thing almost. So when I say, I'll give you a better example here with an example. So when I say persona, it's about adding who you are or what it is first. And then next is the task, what it's supposed to do. Next is example, on giving an example on what I expect as an output, if this is the input. And then you give the context below it. And then you can also have a format on how you want it to output. So the formats can be, for example, in this case, your output should be insert your summarization problem, comma, problem identification, and listing your outstanding action items. So I'm giving it a format in such a way that I want this heading, and under that you want to give this summary, and under outstanding action items, I want you to list out all the action items. So this format can also be, if there are any developers, give your output in HTML structure. So it gives you in an HTML structure, or give it in a bulleted list. It will give it to you in a bulleted list as well. So I'll go deep into some of the best practices that I have found. So even if you don't follow this structure well, but if you follow the practices that I'm about to say, you will get the desired output as expected. Yeah, the first thing is, in all the examples that I've been showing, you see those 3 ###. So whenever you're trying to give the prompt instruction and if you want to separate your instruction and your data, for example, it is better to have the delimiter, hash, hash, hash. So the whole model is trained in such a way that if you want to say that, hey, this first part is different and the second part is different, I want to see this as two different contexts that I'm giving it to you. So don't confuse this as a continuous thing at once. And if you want to differentiate it that way, I want you to give hash, 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 it will differentiate that. And also give your instructions at the top, not in between. So I'll tell you why. So there is a problem called middle understanding problem with the models. What it does is, if you give a long context, let's assume 400 lines, it doesn't see well the middle part of it. It sees the first part well and the last part well, but it misses understanding. It doesn't even see sometimes what is present in the middle part. So it's always better to have your instructions at the top, worst case at the bottom, but not at the middle. So this is the major thing that will have some effective improvement on your prompts whenever you write it. Be specific and descriptive. So again, like I explained before, if you just summarize the weighting notes, it will give you whatever, it will give you different output every time you do the same thing. But if you give it specifically and concise, in a concise manner, you'll always get it effectively the same way every time you prompt it the same thing. Yep. So in this example, I want you to generate the sentiment of the tweets given below. So let's assume you do that and then you give your tweet. So the expectation of the output for some people should be, it should just give me whether it's positive, negative as a single word, or sometimes it will give you as a full sentence. The sentiment of this tweet is positive, the sentiment of this tweet is negative, etc. But what if I always wanted to give either as a word or, let's assume in this case, I always want a phrase where it says the sentiment of the tweet is negative rather than giving me a word. And every time I do that, if I prompt it the first way, it will not do that. It will do whatever it wants. But if I give an example, saying, hey, this is an example, it will always give me a phrase. It will never give me a word. So it's important, if you wanted to have it in a specific way, sometimes the format might not work. Examples are very effective in getting the output like you desire. Positive instructions. Okay, all of these models, like in some pointers that Varsha covered, have been pre-trained, and one of the training mechanisms is bias. So it was trained not to, and also some ethics on top of it. So during that training, it somehow understood that negative is not good. So whenever you give negative words, it doesn't understand well. Sometimes it doesn't even follow as well. So try to avoid giving not or negative words in your instructions. Try to rephrase it in a positive way, and then it always works. Use reference to variable in your instructions. So let's go through this example. Given the article and article title, I want you to generate top 10 and popular keywords of the article. And then I gave how to generate those keywords, etc. So I want to reference the article title and article that it should go after and generate keywords for me. I can have it in that format, which I call it as a variable format, where I give it in quotations and then colon, so that it goes and refers to the article title that I am referring to, so that it doesn't confuse. Let's assume there might be some other article titles that I give as an example. Sometimes it might go to that example and it can create keywords. But what if I want to go to this specific content that is present under article title after hash hash hash? I reference that using that format in quotations and in colon. So that it goes and it takes in that, okay, this is the content that I have to generate keywords for, and then it will generate keywords. include persona. Yeah, this I think I've covered already. Again, it's not always good, but it is better in certain, it's best in some cases, especially when generating some words as a professional customer support agent or as a friendly support agent. So it gives you output that way. Or as a Gen Z support agent, it will give you those terms and then it will give you the output that way. Yeah. So, just summarizing some of the effective things out of all these examples, I would say this separating the context using ### is most important, and giving your instructions either at the top or the bottom is more important. If this doesn't work properly, I would say in your next iteration of testing, try to give it a specific example and then see how is it performing again. So those would be the top two that I would suggest out of all these practices that you should always follow. Rest of all depends on your use case and scenarios. Having said that, these models, the instructions, like I gave a kid example. So you have GPT-2, you have GPT-3, now you have GPT-4, which means the kid is growing. So while I was instructing for the GPT 3.5, I had to give more instructions to it to get to the desired output. But now with GPT 4, I can give less instruction and it really does the job well as well. So having said that, even with GPT 4, not every task is easy to get the desired output. So there are more techniques that people follow in general in community to get to those desired outputs. So the first is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So why do we use this, or when do we use this? So let's assume you want to have the context of your company, and then you want to have the generation on top of it. For example, like our generative instant answers today, which is based on the RAG framework, where if you ask a question on what is your interest rate, what are your current interest rates, so then I would want it to go fetch the knowledge and then answer based on that. So now the prompt will look like something like, hey, this is the query and this is the knowledge, and I want you to generate an output based on that knowledge. So this knowledge is retrieved from your knowledge base, and then the answer is getting generated. So it's the same prompt. The only change in this technique is you are using some external search tool where it gets you that knowledge from somewhere else and injects it into your prompt, and then it generates out. So that's RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Now, chain of thought is like teaching your kid on how to get to the task. For example, if I ask, hey, you have 7 oranges and let's say 4 apples, and then I've taken 1 apple away from you. Now, how many apples? How many fruits do you have? And the answer should be 10. So even this simple problem, sometimes it could answer. The models cannot answer. So then what you do, let's assume again, as a kid example, I instruct that first take 7, and then next take 4, and subtract 1 from 4, and then now sum all 7 plus 3 to 10. So this thought process is what we give it to the problem. So step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. And then now you give a different problem. Now you have, let's say, 10 melons and then 6 lemons. Now how do you get that output? So it will do that. So chain of thought is giving it the thought process on how to do it and asking it to follow that thought process. And the previous problem, without the thought process, it doesn't do well. But if you give these hints and steps, it always does well. So that's chain of thought. React, reason and action. So imagine the RAG where we have given the search tool. Now instead of search tool, let's assume you can give any API to it. So React is reason and act. For example, I say I gave it tools like order status, or cancel my order, all these APIs, and I added descriptions to these APIs. Like, this is the API that will do this is the API that will do this. And then I ask it to say, hey, what's my order status? It will automatically pick up the tool which is related to the order status, and it will try to trigger that. So that's reason and action. Directional stimulus prompting. The DSP prompting is similar to chain of thought prompting, but not as complex as chain of thought prompting. So what it does is, in the summarized example of summarized chat transcript, you are not giving any hints on how to summarize it. So if you give the hint saying, hey, let's say there is a CNN article about some celebrity, so in the hint, instead of just saying summarize this article for me, I say summarize this article for me, and then I give a word called hint, colon, and then I gave some milestones that, let's say, she got an award, some this thing. So what will happen is, in your output, it will include those hints, and then we'll give the summarization on top of it. If you don't give that hint, it will still summarize, but it might not include some important steps that you think are important when you are summarizing about that person or about that article. So that's directional stimulus prompting. So these are some advanced techniques in case if the normal prompting doesn't work. So these are some other prompting techniques that people follow to get to the desired outcome. Yep. So again, summarizing certain rule of thumbs, imagine that as a kid and try to teach it, give it as concise as possible, and if that doesn't work, give some examples to make it work.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Prashant. So we will move on to the hands-on section. As we start the hands-on section, this is one thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning. I just wanted to make sure I say that. At the end of this masterclass, we do have lunch. So don't run off anywhere. There is lunch in the next room.
Hello. Hi guys, I'm Rebecca Stanton. I'm a trainer and a knowledge consultant here at eGain. So how this is going to go is it's a group activity. Don't we miss those from my school? So it's a group activity right now, but I'm going to present at the end of my little presentation where you can email if you want to do this again at your own time. So just soak up as much as you can, work with your peers, and then if you want to kind of do it step by step by yourself, you'll just send an email. So nice and simple process. All right, so there is one laptop on each of your tables. There are 2 tabs open, okay? First tab, hopefully this is the one that's showing. This is the lab instructions, so the step by step. I'm going to be going through it with you, but sometimes, you really didn't hear what I said, you just want to go faster. That's what those are. The next tab is our training system, our demo system, and I've signed all of you guys in. So I'm going to stay up here, go through it with you guys. I have my friends that are going around the room. If you are an eGainer that's going to be helping anybody that gets stuck, can you just raise your hand so they know who to look for right now? If you're an eGainer. We have Lorraine, we have Arvin, raise your hand. So if you are stuck, thank you, you're helping. So if you get stuck at any point, just raise your hand and an eGainer will come and help you guys out, okay? Okay, all right. So we're gonna start with the authoring side of this. So we're gonna put our author hats on, we're already into the system. I'm gonna tell you exactly where to go, and we're gonna use the prompts as though we're an author. Then, if we have time, we'll move on to the AI console, where we'll tweak the prompts, kind of touch what Prashant was just mentioning about, editing the prompts, tweaking them a little bit. So, let's just jump into it. along with me in the lab, feel free. We're going to start with a prompt that we call the acronym prompt. So what this prompt can do for you guys is your authors can author an article per use, and then they can run this prompt and automatically expand an acronym the first time it's used. So that's what we're going to do. All right. And I'm going to zoom in, actually. You can zoom in. It's a little better. Okay. In the lab, I'm telling you guys exactly where to go, but I'm going to go there too, okay? So we're going to all navigate to a folder together. And that folder is called Banking Regulations. And we're going to look for an article that has a number in front of it. So if you could just take a moment to look at the top right corner. I'm John right now. You guys are some author with a number. So just go to that specific article, and that's only so if you guys want to do it again later, we'll just give you a different user so you can start from scratch. So, you're going to select the folder called Banking Regulations. And we have like 5 versions of every article, like I said. So just pick the one that kind of matches with the user we gave you. Most of you should be author 1. I think one of you guys I gave you author 2. I'm going to be author 5 today, so I don't mess with my friend in partner 1. All right, so here is an article that uses an acronym of FTC multiple times. So this prompt is going to expand the first use of it only. So if anybody knows, if we want to work on an article, only one author can work on an article at a time. They're like library books, right? We need to check it out so no one else can touch it. Basically locks it. We're going to click that edit button. All right, it's checked out. Let's pretend that we just typed this up. Not going to make you guys do that. And here is our Assist GPT button. I'm going to zoom in a bit on this. Now, if you're finding this kind of like a lot going on the page, y'all can always minimize these sections. I just close my navigation menu. You can hide your folder list, your article list, or you can leave it all open. Totally up to you. When I run the prompts, I like to get the replace button. So to get that to show, you can just select all of the content in your article. Now, if you forget to do this, that's no problem. You just won't see that replace button, which is not a big deal. And then we're going to select our Assist GPT button. These are going to be the out-of-the-box prompts, the ones that come automatically. So, we have to select the Load More button to show all of the prompts that are in the system. And our second to last one is Expand Acronyms. And now it's going.
This is the one you were talking about.
Anybody needs help, just raise your hand. My e-gainers will come and help you. Okay? All right, so we can see it's working, it's thinking. And we can see that it's expanded FTC to say Federal Trade Commission. Now, this specific prompt that Prasant has written, thank you, only expands the first use of the acronym. But of course, you could always write a prompt that expands all of them. So it's just what we put inside the prompt. Because I selected all of my content, that's why I'm seeing that replace button. So if you just went, opened the article, checked it out, clicked your Assist GPT button, you won't see that. No big deal, you can just insert that and then erase what was originally there. That's why I personally like to select everything. One less step. You click replace, it's going to replace the content in your article with what that prompt gave you. And it just gave me a little extra thing, but that's easy to get rid of. So now we can see Federal Trade Commission has been expanded. Any questions about this specific prompt?
Where does it find what the acronym means?
Currently, it takes in general, so it doesn't take from the glossary as of now. it takes from its general knowledge that it was trained on internet. But if you want it to expand it in a specific way, there is a macro that we have where you can actually direct it to a glossary article. You have the list of all acronyms, and then you can ask it to expand based on that article as well. That
So just a different prompt.
yeah.
Great question. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back.
So there was a button, and I apologize, I screwed through really fast, that said regenerate, I think was the would you get, does that mean you're going to get a different response back each time, like if you're not happy with?
Yeah, I'm just gonna get there so we know what you're referring to. So she's asking about, we'll just let it run for a sec. Yes, thank you. Okay, regenerate, that's what you're asking about? Yeah, so for this specific prompt, every time you run it, it's probably gonna give you the same response, but for the next one that we're gonna do, which is improve an article, you guys can practice using that and it will give you a different response if you're not super happy. But the cool thing is, you can always edit this from here within this specific window, or you can always just manually edit, tweak it a little bit, but yes, that is exactly what that will do. All right. Any other questions about this specific prompt? Okay, so we're done working on this article. I could give you guys a pop quiz and say, what do we do now? But I'll be nice and say, you guys can publish this article or you can check it in, not a big deal. But if you publish it, right, those changes are now represented on our portal. We are using the default workflow today, and if you want to learn more about workflows, attend my training at the end of the day. I'm going to kind of go through that. So this only comes up after you publish. We can put a nice, beautiful summary here, and we can click done. All right, so that is our first prompt that we're running. Again, these instructions are here for you all if you want to do it later. All right, so we're just moving on along. Now we're going to improve an article. And we're going to work on a different article, okay? So we'll all navigate together to that different article. So this prompt enhances the current article for readability. It organizes it into distinct sections using heading formatting, and it structures the data. So I'm going to have you guys actually switch folders. So this is still going to be a top-level folder. We're going to go from banking regulations to credit card application. And you're going to select the article called Improve This Article, blank with your author. So I'll go there as well. Not the credit card folder, the credit card application folder. You'll know you're in the right place because you're going to see all these duplicate articles. And we're going to open up the article that says Improve This Article. So there's actually two articles we're going to work in this folder. So we're not going to open up Decline. You're going to scroll down and you're going to open up Improve This Article. And if you see, this is an incredibly long article. There's no formatting, there's no sections, there's no headers, there's no pretty colors or pictures. It's just a bunch of content. So obviously this needs to be improved. Again, articles are like library books, we want to work on them. Let's check it out. Let's click that edit button. I like to select everything. Specifically for this prompt, I really like to select all of it because I'm going to just paste what it runs. Select it all. Again, we're going to click our Assist GPT button. We're going to select Approve Article. This is an out-of-the-box prompt. So it's going to be your fourth one down. The prompt will run, and this is a really great example of when you would use that regenerate button if you want to kind of organize it in a different way. All right, so here we can see we have headers. It's put actually some of the information into a graph, sectioned it off as well. So I click Replace because I like to save myself a click. If you didn't like it, regenerate it. Question?
If
it would insert it below.
Okay.
So you wouldn't lose the old stuff.
Okay.
So sometimes it would make sense, I guess, to use that. It's really, up to you. All right, I'm going to click replace. And if I just put my cursor in there, you can see that I have my headers applied. And depending on your portal template, those headers can do a lot of really great things for you on that portal, right? You can have those accordions, you can have that section on the side, it's almost like a table of contents. Also, you will learn later, you will learn later in the next training, the authoring training, that Instant Answers likes those headers. So Instant Answers can identify those. It makes it easier to find a question.
Yes. Is there a significance to the HTML with the 2 apostrophes before it at the top of what got generated?
So I'm going to know.
So the current model that we're using is called GPT-402. So the problem is, one of the things is we should have instructed you to not give that HTML. It always gives that HTML. But there's no significance for that, you can just remove it. But in your prompt, if you say not give your output or let's say HTML, it will not do that. We didn't do that especially for this prompt.
So this prompt was to render the answer in HTML?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we instructed is to give the headers, and if possible, if you feel that you can give it in a table format, give it in a table format, and then give the output in HTML. Because at underlying this whole structure that rendering is based on HTML, so if you give an HTML output, and then that's what it is rendered.
Okay. If I have some time, I'll actually show you. Carlos created a prompt where we removed that, so you can always have that as well. Not the job. Okay. Do we want to generate a title, Arvin? Yeah, we'll generate a title. Question? Yeah.
I was wondering, because I'm working on that right now.
Yeah. Oh, about this one. Okay, I'll get there. All right, so we're gonna.
Yeah, sorry. Just one quick question. So if you check it in instead of publishing, does that just kind of hang an unpublished draft out there as opposed to, is that what that?
Yeah, so the difference between checking an article in and publishing the article, when you check it in, it's almost just like, okay, I'm done for now, but I don't want what I've done to be seen on the portal yet. So maybe done for the day, got to finish it tomorrow. Maybe you're done with your part, you want somebody else to come pick it up. That works, that's when you can do that. But if you checked it in and you didn't mean to, you'll just check it back in. Okay. You see so many in my words, but it's okay. All right, so we're going to run generate a title for this article that we're in. So we're just going to run the prompt again. And I'm just going to switch to another article. So I don't step on somebody's toes. Okay, we'll take our They're just gonna sign on somebody. If you guys want, you can run that prompt. With the generate the title prompt, you don't have to select your content again because you're running it for the title only. So you can just click that Assist GPT button and click generate title, which is one of our out of the box prompts.